I live in Rockport, Texas. It's a little seaside community here on the Texas Gulf Coast. Now, the Gulf of Mexico is the body of water that every river in Texas flows into eventually. But where do those Texas rivers begin? I've always been fascinated with moving water. I also enjoy looking at maps and following water courses from their beginning to their end. Over the past few years, I've been developing a plan to visit some of the starting points of our Texas rivers. Knowing I couldn't visit the source of every single Texas river, I narrowed it down to 14 rivers that I was able to map a route to as close to the source of those rivers as I could get. This would take me through Texas, New Mexico, and Colorado. I love a good road trip, so I cleaned up my truck, filled it full of gear, and drove to Central Texas to pick up my dad, who agreed to come with me on this adventure. And that's where our story begins. Well, it's day one of the Texas River Source trip. Today we're going to try to knock out the Colorado River, the Brazos River, and the Red River. Here we are, first stop of the trip, the headwaters or the source of the Colorado River. Had to drive around quite a bit and find where we could get closest to the drop off. There's a big escarpment out here that kind of drops off from the plains, and that's where the waters kind of collect for the Colorado. So, came out here, checked it out, been hitting a lot of farm roads and some mud, and we finally found something that at least flows into the main drainage for the start of the Colorado. So first river down, Colorado's a big one, goes through Central Texas, empties out into Matagorda Bay, and really cool to see where it starts. Now there's mud around here, not a whole lot of standing water, but with the rains we've had recently, you know, you can see where it flows through quite often down here. So here we are, one of many, Colorado River. Well, here we are in Lubbock. Stop 2 on this tour. We're at the Buddy Holly Lake Recreation Area, and these are part of the headwaters of the Brazos River. Nice little park over here, easy to get to, unlike the Colorado River start, which took us around all sorts of different places, but nice little lake area, and this water eventually flows down, starts up the Brazos River. So here we are, stop number 2. Brazos runs across Texas, A little farther north in the Colorado. As Robert O'Keefe said, Brazos still runs muddy as it's done all along. It's not necessarily clear up here. It probably gets muddier as it goes. But here we are, the Brazos River. Here we are at our third stop. We're at Polladura Canyon State Park here just south of Amarillo. We're on the Prairie Dog Town Fork of the Red River, and this is a tributary that goes all the way down across the Panhandle, makes the northern border of Texas, and eventually flows into the Gulf. Really beautiful area out here. We camped overnight, had a little bit of rain, and that was actually pretty cool. And woke up to a nice morning, about to head over to Colorado now, but wanted to come and see the headwaters of the Red River. Here we are on the Canadian River. We're several miles west of Raton, New Mexico. The actual headwaters of the Canadian are quite a few miles up into the mountains, but I couldn't find any legal way of getting up to those headwaters. So I got as close as we could to the start. Now the Canadian River runs down through New Mexico, across the top of the Texas Panhandle, through Oklahoma, and meets up with the Arkansas River, and then meets up with the Mississippi and goes from there. It's actually a pretty large river once you get farther downstream. Here it's barely a trickle. It's a beautiful area up here, and good to see another river. This is the Canadian. Well, this is about as far as we could get. The road is closed. We were hoping to get over to those mountains right over there for the top of the pass, which is where the actual source of the Rio Grande River is. All the snow melt coming off that mountain runs down through this valley here and starts the Rio Grande. It's a little disappointing not to get a little further. It is a beautiful place to stop. We had some lunch out here. Let me show you around. I mean, it is just gorgeous out here. So, not a too bad place to be. From here, we'll just kind of go on down and meet up with the river so I can actually show you some of the water. But yeah, can't get any farther. They had the road closed, I guess the snow melt and the road crews just trying to keep everybody safe. So this is where we stopped. Here we are at the Rio Grande River. Clearly this is not the headwaters. The headwaters are way back up there in the mountains. But as you saw earlier, the road going up to that pass is closed. So this is as close as we could get to actually film the river and say a little bit about it. So the Rio Grande starts here in the mountains in southwestern Colorado on the eastern side of the San Juan Mountains, run down through Colorado, New Mexico, and start the Texas-Mexico border in El Paso. It's the full southern border of Texas. So here we are at the Rio Grande. It's big even at the start of it. Well, here's the Pecos River, just east of Santa Fe. A hike down to this spot from our campground, the Iron Gate campground, which is pretty far up in the mountains. And this is probably about as far as I can get, as close to the source of the river. It goes way up the mountain up here, but it's still flowing really, really good here. The Pecos River flows down through New Mexico, cuts across parts of West Texas, and finally enters into the Rio Grande. So very cool little river out here. Beautiful scenery. We're up here in the mountains. We've seen all sorts of animals and have a beautiful campground. So here it is, the Pecos River.
From the Pecos River, we started our journey back to Texas. We camped overnight at the Guadalupe Mountains National Park and then continued our journey to the South Llano River State Park near Junction. I would love to have shared some of the beautiful footage I captured at the national park. However, you're not able to film there without a permit.
We're here just north of Sonora, Texas, at the Dry Devils River. This is the headwaters that turns into the Devils River that goes down and meets up with the Rio Grande at Lake Amistad. A lot of fishermen and adventurers like to go down the Devils River. There's a lot of wilderness out there. It's accessed only by kayak and canoe. Some really good fishing out there. But here is the start of it, up here north of Sonora on the Dry Devils River. Well, today is the last day of this trip. We're up here in the Texas Hill Country, and we're going to be knocking out quite a few of the Texas rivers because most of them start pretty close to each other here in the Hill Country. So we're going to start off with the Llano River today, which is where we camped and where we fished yesterday and where we woke up this morning. So we've come up here to the South Llano River. Here we are on the Llano River. This is the very start of it, way up here in the Hill Country in Edwards County. Now, the Llano River flows down through the Hill Country and finally meets up with the Colorado River just west of Marble Falls. Very pretty river. We fished it last night, caught a few little fish. And it has a lot of terrain that it goes through. It's a real neat little river here in the Texas Hill Country, the Llano River. Here we are at the Nueces River. The Nueces goes through the Hill Country, goes through South Texas. It comes out in Nueces Bay, close to Corpus Christi. Pretty little river out here in the middle of nowhere, out here at the headwaters. Here is the Nueces River. Here we are at the true headwaters of the Frio River. This cold water river flows down through the Hill Country, through Lakey and Concan, Gardner State Park, ends up meeting up with the Nueces River outside of the Hill Country. Beautiful little river, lots of recreational activities around this area, and it's really kind of a cool thing to be right here at the headwaters of this river. I've never been up here before. It's beautiful up here. Here we are on the Frio River. Here's the headwaters of the Guadalupe River. Guadalupe is a pretty big river, kind of winds its way through central and southeast Texas and ends up down in San Antonio Bay near Seadrift, which is close to where I live in Rockport. It's a great river, a lot of fishing on this one. Goes through Canyon Lake, but it goes through quite a bit of towns, so a lot of towns are settled on the banks of the Guadalupe. But here it is in its very small form, just a little trickle here, Guadalupe River. Here's the Pedernales River. We're not quite up to the headwaters, but we're a little ways down. Pedernales runs down through central Texas and meets up with the Colorado River at Lake Travis. And here it is, the Pedernales River. This is way upriver on the Blanco River, which winds through the hill country, ends up meeting with the San Marcos River close to San Marcos. Now this river has a lot of memories for me. I grew up in San Marcos and my grandparents lived out in Wimberley, so I spent a lot of time on the Blanco River. For a long while we had a deer lease that the Blanco River ran through, so we've had a lot of good memories on this river, good fishing, good kayaking, and just overall good time with family. But here it is, pretty far upriver on the Blanco River. Here's the San Marcos River. This is the river I grew up on. Lived here in San Marcos since 1980, and I love this river. This is the very beginning of it. This is Spring Lake, where all the springs come up and feed the river. Now the San Marcos runs down through San Marcos and meets up with the Guadalupe River in Gonzales. So here it is, the San Marcos River.
This was an amazing adventure. Over 2,800 miles across 3 states, visiting 14 different river sources. I'm appreciative of the beauty of this state and those surrounding it. I'm thankful for the memories I carry with me and being able to share that with my dad. And I appreciate you following along on this trip. If you like what you saw, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. If you do subscribe, hit that notification button so you know when I post new videos. I appreciate each and every one of you. Y'all get out there and live the good life. Thanks a lot.